What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Zac Gallen looks like his old self against the San Francisco Giants. And is the NL West wildcard race more open than we think?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. Please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. I'm there to see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're discussing Zac Gallen dominating against the San Francisco Giants, some what-if scenarios for the Dbacks, and is the NL West wildcard race more open than we think? So, whole bunch I want to talk to you guys about on today's podcast, but first want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. I try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after Dbacks games when I can. So please hit subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notified when I go live. You can follow me on social media because I always tweet before I go live at Creator Thomas 24 for my personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's jump into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast to discuss Dbacks taking game 2 from the Giants. It was all about Zac Gallen dominating as a starter, a phrase we don't say too often on this podcast. And the Dbacks offense, home run galore, looked like a home run derby out there against Birdsong, and most importantly against Seymour, as he gave up 3 home runs for the San Francisco Giants in relief. Great Dbacks win tonight. Dbacks, of course, needed this, starting the month of July with a victory, and it was great to see Zac Gallen have probably his best start all season at Chase Field. It's been an area where you look at the splits, and he's clearly been better on the road than at home this year. I don't know why that would be. You would think your ace pitcher is more comfortable playing in front of his home crowd. That has not been the case in 2025, but tonight against the Giants, he dominated, and he looked like his old self. He had that fastball command working, and he just seemed confident and poised out there. There's so many times throughout this season when he's struggling. You could just tell he's searching. He's unsure of himself. He doesn't know exactly what pitch to throw. He might need help from the catcher. We're having some mound visits. And in this game, there was a moment where it felt like we were going to be trending in that direction again, because if you remember, Giants scored 2 runs off Zac Gallen in the second inning. D-backs defense was a little bit questionable as well. We had that ball thrown in from center field where no one cut it off, and we had our guy run to third base. It felt like the D-backs were potentially going to get blown out in another Zac Gallen disaster the way this game was starting off. But after that second inning, Zac Gallen really settled in, and you could tell things were a little bit different for Zac Gallen after, which inning was it? After the 5th inning, when he struck out the side, you could tell he walked off with a little bit of confidence, with a little bit more swagger than he has in past starts this season. And it looked like old Zac Gallen, because old Zac Gallen was always cool, calm, collected. He was always a lot of swagger, a lot of confidence walking off the mound, because he knew he was nasty, and he knew when he was right how dominant he was. And not enough in 2025 have we seen that confidence Zac Gallen. Have we seen that swagger? But tonight we did. And maybe the question now should be, should we sell high on Zac Gallen after getting a start like we got today, where he gives us the length, The D-backs rotation has struggled a lot this season when given the D-backs length. As good as Ryan Nelson's been, he does not pitch deep into ball games, especially when Toy Lavella's got him on a pitch count. Erod, great month of June. He's still a guy that goes 5 innings. Same with Brandon Pfaadt. Kelly, more recently, feels like he's not going as deep into ball games. And because of it, we've seen this bullpen try to go 4, 5 innings, right? And it's usually a disaster when this bullpen has to get that many outs. And so for Zac Gallen to go 7 innings, really give the D-backs great length, really save this D-backs bullpen, get 10 strikeouts as well. Like, this was one of the best starts from Zac Gallen this season, and it was nice to see him have his fastball command. And maybe now you start picking up that phone if you're Mike Hazen, you start calling around and say, man, did you see Zac Gallen dominate the San Francisco Giants? Maybe it's time to sell high on him. Then the lineup. Home runs galore. We know this D-backs team has been one of the best in baseball at smashing bombs, and they did it again tonight. Randall Grichuk with one of the biggest home runs you'll ever see at Chase Field. His went 453 feet. And I think they said on the broadcast the D-backs have the most home runs in Major League Baseball, over 450 feet. This is a team that absolutely just crushes the ball. You had Randall Grichuk hit a home run. You had Lourdes Gurriel, who has been on fire for the D-backs for 6 weeks now. He hit his 12th of the season. Lourdes Gurriel, Eugenio Suarez, love them right now as that back-to-back combination as 2 right-handed hitters. They had 4 runs tonight. Gurriel also had the 2 ribbies and the home run. Those 2 guys have been fantastic for the D-backs over the last 6 weeks of the season. And then Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy, I love the way those 2 guys are playing. Jake McCarthy had a big smash home run tonight that led to a few runs scoring. And then Alec Thomas overall just looks more confident at the plate over the last 2-3 weeks. He's been getting on base a bunch. He's getting just like those hits where he's hitting it where the defense ain't. Like, he's not ripping 100-mile-per-hour liners off the bat, but just dipping it over the infielder's head, finding the little soft spots in the outfield. Like, he's just doing what he needs to do. So I like the way that the young outfielders in Jake and Alec Thomas are looking. I like the way the D-backs righties are looking in Suarez and Gurriel. So the D-backs offense, of course, is always great when those things are happening. Perdomo had a couple hits. And, of course, James McCann, who was recently picked up, his at-bats tonight were just fantastic. He had the home run, but also drew 2 walks. And his approach at the plate offensively, the way he calls games defensively, and everything. He's just a real professional catcher, and we might be in real conversation for Jose Herrera to lose that backup job to James McCann once Gabriel Moreno comes back, because he's been that good in 2025. D-backs start the month of July with a win. Last year, we've been talking about how the D-backs finished June with 16 wins. D-backs weren't able to get to 16 wins this past June, but last year entering July, the D-backs were 3 games below 500. This year entering July, the D-backs are right at 500. Now their new goal. Last year, July, they had 17 wins in the month of July. We already started this month off correct with a win against the Giants. Let's get 16 more wins, and let's at least match last year's record in the month of July. Now I got some what-if scenarios to talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks in segment number 2. But hey, I first want to talk to you guys about Monarch Money, because ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB on monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's read a quick comment. Scott Mack said, garbage man delivered tonight. not the nicest comment about Zac Gallen, the milkman, who absolutely delivered for the D-backs. But now I want to discuss some what-if scenarios, and one of them was inspired. I don't have the name of the user who put the comment, but he said you should talk about Pavin Smith on the next pod. And so this segment kind of ties into that with this what-if scenario, because I got 3 what-if scenarios I want to discuss. The first what-if scenario is, what if Jake McCarthy's resurgence steals Pavin Smith's job? It's something that we've discussed a bunch over the podcast with Pavin Smith. If he starts to struggle, could we call up a Jake McCarthy and see if he can give the D-backs some juice in that DH spot, considering they're both left-handed bats? And then with all the injuries to Carroll and Naylor, and especially the lefties in the lineup, D-backs have had to call up Jake McCarthy. And since getting the call up, Jake McCarthy, I think, has looked really comfortable at the plate. He was crushing it down in Reno, over a 300 average down there, over 800 OPS, stealing a bunch of bases. And since being called up, you could just tell how much more comfortable he is at the plate right now. Maybe the numbers aren't screaming off the bat, because coming into tonight's game, he was 5 for his last 21. So it's not like the numbers have been screaming off the bat for Jake McCarthy. But you look a little bit deeper and the hard contact stats are there. The ball just flying off the bat a little bit more. And he just looks way more confident in himself than he did at the beginning of the season when he was like 2 for 40 to start the year. Jake McCarthy just looks so much more comfortable at the plate right now. He's been hot down in Reno. It looks like it's translating a little bit on the major league level. I like the way he has his approach to the plate right now. He's getting aggressive. If there's a ball down the middle, if it's in his zone, he's swinging away. He's not going up there to take pitches. Like Jake McCarthy's going up there to do some damage right now. And he kind of looks like the Jake McCarthy post All-Star break last season, which was one of the best players in this D-backs lineup. So if you could get that guy's huge, because a guy like Pavin Smith right now, going the opposite direction, he's been really struggling since that first month of the season where he came out the gates on fire. But in the month of May, 240 average, 633 OPS, and entering tonight, the month of June, or I guess not entering tonight because the month of June is over, 194 average and a 697 OPS. And the worst thing about Pavin Smith is just the strikeout numbers. 31.8% this year. He just strikes out a third of the time, which is just way too much. And so a guy like Jake McCarthy, whose plate discipline historically has been pretty good, not a guy that strikes out at an insane rate, always been a good contact guy. You do him versus Pavin Smith, and it's like, yes, right now the slash line still looks good for Pavin Smith, but you look a little deep into the numbers over the last couple months, he has really gone the wrong direction, and the strikeout rate, it's becoming too enormous to ignore. And I still like Pavin Smith. I think he's having a good season, but I think the biggest issue is Torey Lovullo batting him third in the lineup every single day. Jake McCarthy's batting 6th. If that's where Pavin Smith batted, I think it would make a lot more sense. But the fact that he bats third as much as he does, I think that's bad for the lineup. And I think eventually going to more Jake McCarthy with his contact ability and his speed, I think it makes more sense overall for the D-backs. Plus, he plays solid defense in the outfield as well. Pavin Smith, I think, has held his own at first base defensively this year, but I just think there's so many more positives with Jake McCarthy over Pavin Smith. I would like to see that changing of the guard as the season progresses. The next what-if scenario. What if Kyle Backus replaces Ryan Thompson as the setup guy? Both pitchers are sinker ball heavy, but Ryan Thompson, we know he has been bad in 2025. He's got a 4.6 ERA. It has felt worse than that. Double-digit hits per 9 allowed, a 1.5 whip. Like, he just getting crushed with the hard contact. He's given up a bunch of walks. Like, he still gets the ground balls, but not at – it just doesn't feel like he gets them at the rate that the D-backs need them, because it feels like we need like a 70% ground ball rate out of Ryan Thompson. And of course, that's just not going to happen this season. He's at 49.5%, which is still great. Still one of the better marks. Half the time you're getting ground ball out of Ryan Thompson, but the last 2 years, he's been at 59%. And actually, that first season, 2023, that small sample size in the regular season, he did a ground ball rate at 80%. Full season with the D-backs in 24 last year, it was 60%, but now it's 50%. going the wrong way. Meanwhile, look at Kyle Backus. His ground ball rate, not that high right now, 38%, but overall, he just been so much better than a guy like Ryan Thompson. Backus has the 1.23 ERA. He's got the 0.8 whip. He's also a sinker ball pitcher, so he's the same type of guy, but his sinker ball this year, expected batting average of 168, expected slug of 223. The numbers tell you the ERA that he's throwing up right now lines up with the advanced stats, lines up with what he's producing when you look at the statistical resume. And so the eye test is there, the stats are there for Kyle Backus. And I just think we should see a changing of guard there as well, because Ryan Thompson kind of is like the same kind of type of pitcher, both sinker ball guys, but Ryan Thompson's sinker ball is getting hit for a 394 average and a 493 slug in 2025. One guy is young, one guy is old. I just think it's time to probably make that switch in the bullpen, because Backus has been such a bright spot for the D-backs. He seems so consistent every time he goes out there. And there's just not a lot of guys you could trust right now from this D-backs bullpen. So I would like to see Kyle Backus eventually replace Ryan Thompson as the setup man for at least 2025, because who else do you trust as a setup man? We would all love Kevin Ginkel to reignite his old form, but it does not look so good right now. So Kyle Backus might be our best chance to be that eighth inning guy behind a Shelby Miller. And then the final what if I want to discuss is, what if Erod's June was real? Because Erod is coming off the month of June where he looked absolutely fantastic after being a disaster all 2024, after looking like he was off to another disaster season 2025 with a 6.06 ERA in the month of April, a 9.75 ERA in the month of May, and 27 innings pitched in the month of June, a 1.98 ERA. The whip is probably still a little too high at 1.37, but he's coming off a very good month where he was giving the D-backs some quality starts, giving the D-backs some decent length. And if that's really the Erod, maybe not the sub-2 ERA guy, but he can at least look like a number 3 starter, which he was paid to be, maybe the D-backs actually do have a chance of turning it around in the second half of the season, because I have total faith that Merrill Kelly's going to be a stud and continue to be a stud. I have absolute faith in Ryan Nelson. We need at least one more starting pitcher to be good. And if Erod can be that guy, because at this point, Brandon Pfaadt, it feels like he's a lost cause for 2025. He's not going to go anywhere, but it looks bad for him right now. Zac Gallen, I think he'd probably be best if he was traded somewhere else at the deadline. And so I'm looking at Kelly, Erod, and Ryan Nelson as my 3 horsemen. If Erod can continue this resurgence he's on right now through the All-Star break, through the rest of 2025, that could be huge for the D-backs when talking about a second half resurgence. But if we want to get a little bit crazy, a resurgence from Erod from now until the deadline, the real play when we talk about the D-backs being potential sellers, if you can get off the Erod money, owed like 60 plus million over the next 3 years, if you can get off his money, that would be huge for Arizona. That's the real play here. If Erod can continue to look fantastic for the D-backs, get off that money any way you can. I just don't think it's going to be that possible at this year's deadline. Now we'll discuss if the NL West wildcard race is more open than you think in segment number 3. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Supply House, because get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. So now let's discuss the NL West wildcard race, looking a little bit more open and more vulnerable than we thought because, of course, the Dbacks trying to get hot, coming off a month of June where they did not finish the month like we wanted them to. But overall, actually, let's check the Dbacks record overall for the month of June because I don't know if I know it off the top of my head. I know that they got to 15 wins, but did they finish with a... So the D-backs finished the month of June 15-11, still 4 games above 500. Didn't get to 16 wins. They would have been 16-10. That would have felt so sweet. But like we said, next goal is for the D-backs to match last year's win total of 17 wins in the month of July. And if they could do that, they could really make this wild card race interesting by the MLB trade deadline, because like I mentioned at the top of this segment, the NL West wildcard race looking a little bit more vulnerable because with the D-backs going 15-11 in the month of June, you look at the June schedules and records for the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants, and both of those teams are starting to struggle a little bit. Both of those teams ended June with a sub 500 record in the month. Both of them finished with exactly 13 wins actually in the month of June, and they could potentially be going in the wrong direction. You look at the Giants right now, right? Their offense is struggling. They do not have the horses to really compete with these top teams when it comes to offense. Getting Rafael Devers was huge, but he has struck out a ton in his last few games. Willie Adames is not having the season that they wanted when they gave him the money this offseason. And it's like another, Giants offseason just move that didn't work out, which is really annoying for them. I'm sure that they just want one star player that they, signed in free agency to look like a star player. Just hasn't really happened for them. But their offense is probably just not good enough right now, to really compete on that, Dodgers, Phillies level. And so because of that, I think their offensive struggles are going to keep them in that wild card pack. D-backs, we know, just straight up have a better offense than the Giants and one of the best in the National League. And so as good as the pitching is for the Giants with Robbie Ray and Logan Webb, I do think it's a super flawed team. I think that hot start that we saw at the beginning of the season for San Fran, they're starting to regress to the mean. They're starting to cool off. I think we probably overestimated how good this team was. I always thought this team could be a dark horse wildcard team. I was in on the Giants over coming to the season as a team that could fight for a wildcard spot. But did I think they were as good as they looked the first 6 weeks of the season when they were competing with the LA Dodgers for the NL West? Definitely not. And so I still think the D-backs are a better team than the Giants, and on paper should finish ahead of the Giants. We just don't know if that's going to happen because of how bad the D-backs have been in 2025. But I look at the Giants right now. I think they're a team that can definitely continue in the direction that they're on. If they don't add some offensive pieces at the trade deadline, this is going to be a team that's right there fighting for a wild card spot, indistinguishable from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Same with the San Diego Padres. That team is just so top heavy. If they sustain an injury, if anyone starts to go in a slump, like we've seen with Fernando Tatis, right? Manny Machado is his numbers are starting to come back down a little bit. And all of a sudden, the San Diego Padres don't look as good of a team. They're just not as dominant when those guys aren't dominating. Dylan Cease hasn't lived up to being an ace in 2025 as well for the San Diego Padres. And when your top heavy team and your stars aren't playing like stars, you're going to start to struggle. And that's why I look at this NL West and I say the D-backs should definitely be competing with the Padres and the Giants. D-backs straight up on paper, well, not even on paper, D-backs have a better offense than the Giants, and on paper have as much talent as the San Diego Padres, and there's no reason why the D-backs can't leapfrog either team in the NL West standings. And to do that, getting a third win in a 4-game series against the San Francisco Giants will be huge. Merrill Kelly looks to continue to be the most underrated pitcher in baseball, finishing the month of June with a sub-3 ERA. And you look at Merrill Kelly's numbers in 2025 against the rest of the pack, and he just continues to be one of the best pitchers in the sport. You look at his whip in, let me pull it up. His whip in 2025, Merrill Kelly, 6th among all starters in the National League. And you look at his batting average against, Merrill Kelly also dominant in that department for batting average against. Merrill Kelly's currently 7th at 215 average. You know who's number 1 though in batting average against entering today? Brandon Pfaadt. OPS against, you know who's number 1 in that? And this is OPS against, when I said batting average against, Brandon Pfaadt, number 1. Highest batting average allowed, I should say. Merrill Kelly, 6th lowest batting average allowed. OPS allowed, Brandon Pfaadt, highest OPS allowed in the National League, 828. Zac Gallen, number 2 at 791 entering today. But Merrill Kelly, 9th lowest OPS allowed at 638. He's been fantastic this year, just continues to be one of the most underrated pitchers in Major League Baseball. I'll look for him to dominate once again against the San Francisco Giants. If the D-backs can get a third victory in a 4-game set, that is huge. Want to see James McCann play more. He's looked fantastic. Could have thrown him in the what-if section because I think Jose Herrera could be losing his job if McCann continues to play like this. And then I want to know, is Josh Naylor going to be back? So weird. How many times this week has Josh Naylor been in the lineup and then like an hour before the game, he just gets scratched? This is what I mean when I say I don't trust the D-backs training staff and the players' health, because we're a team that's always like, we got to rest this guy, we got to rest that guy. But then Josh Naylor, who's hurt, we just every day act like he's going to play. And at the last minute, we're like, I don't know. I didn't like that last swing in BP. Maybe we should sit him another day. Like, how about we just have a better plan overall for our players and their health outside of just the willy-nilly, game 2 in Colorado, let's sit Ketel Marte. Like, that kind of stuff just makes absolutely no sense to me. So we'll see if Josh Naylor comes back tomorrow. We know Corbin Carroll wants to come back before the All-Star break. I wouldn't expect him in this series against the San Francisco Giants, but if Corbin Carroll can come back before the All-Star break, that would be a huge boost to this lineup and really propel the D-backs to finish the month of July strong. Because again, as bad as it's been, as bad as the vibes have been, and as much as I do not believe in this D-backs team, it's baseball. Like we saw last year, you get hot for 2 months in the summer, and you can put yourself in position to make it to the postseason. That's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.